Greetings from Boston and welcome to Tennis Talk Daily. The Indian Wells draw has been released, and as promised, I want to do a brief discussion of the draw, including Federer's path to the defense of his crown, but also the paths of a number of the other contenders we've been discussing. The second question I wanted to broach today is the question of court speed. Indian Wells is known to be one of the slowest courts, at least in the hard courts, and certainly the slowest in the Masters 1000 level tournaments. Again, among the hard courts, it's just marginally faster than some of the faster clay courts, say in Rome. And I want to talk about the implications of the slower surface. So, welcome to the channel. Subscribe to the channel if you want the essential tennis commentary. We try to do analysis not only of the players in the tournaments, but also the historical issues, the broader historical and philosophical context of tennis. Subscribe, give the video a thumbs up if you like what you see and hear. So, Roger Federer's path looks fairly clean into the semifinals and thereby to the retention of his world #1 position. Of course, a number of strong contenders are not present at Indian Wells. Of course, Rafael Nadal is out, Andy Murray is out, Wawrinka is out, David Goffin is out. So it looks fairly clean. Federer could see a second-round match with Ryan Harrison, who has been known to play very well in recent months. He could see a third round with Krajinovic, and he could see a fourth-round match likely with Fabio Fognini, who's coming off a victory at the Brazil Open. In the quarterfinal, we could see a Federer versus Denis Shapovalov if Shapo pushes through that deeply. On the other hand, it could be a quarterfinal with kind of a classic matchup with Federer and Berdych. It also could be a Federer versus Chung, and then there's also Dominic Thiem, who's at the lower portion of Federer's quarter, who could see Federer in the quarterfinals. The semifinal would get a little more complicated for Federer. Of course, Nick Kyrgios, if he gets past Kevin Anderson, which is a tall task, could see Federer in the semifinal. Kyrgios will also have to get past possibly Dimitrov, possibly Rublev, possibly Ramos Vinolas, and then you've got Bautista Agut, who's again riding a wave of confidence after his win in Dubai, who could be playing Kyrgios in the quarterfinal. But by all appearances, we're either going to see Federer versus Kyrgios, or possibly, if my sort of soft prediction is correct, I think Dimitrov's going to go a lot deeper in this tournament than he's been able to recently, particularly in Dubai with that big upset he had. But after that, I do think he's going to kind of rekindle the flames, as it were, and go a little bit deeper into this tournament. And so I'm looking for a Dimitrov versus Kyrgios quarterfinal, and we'll see who prevails there. Whoever prevails there will meet Roger Federer in the semifinal. The bottom half of the draw looks like the big players are going to be, of course, Del Potro, and Del Potro could see a fairly early meeting with Djokovic. Djokovic needs to get past probably Nishikori, and then he will be in the fourth round, presumably. If Juan Martín gets the fourth round, it'll be a DelPo versus Djokovic, which could be really exciting. Whoever wins that match may go on to face Marin Cilic in the quarterfinal, presuming that Cilic is playing well. And in the semifinal, in the bottom half, you could see, it could be, again, it's going to be, on the one hand, you're going to have either Djokovic, DelPo, or Cilic. On the other side, you're going to have possibly Kyle Edmund, who's coming off of a terrible flu. He hasn't played in a while, but he's a youngster, and he does have an ability to kind of stage a few upsets, as evidenced in the Australian Open. More likely, you might see Alexander Zverev in that semifinal as well. And then, of course, Tiafoe, who's coming off that victory at the Del Rey Open, might be playing well and could be in that semifinal. So one possible prediction would basically be a Zverev versus, say, Del Potro in the semifinal. But you know what? I have I have some hope with respect to Djokovic. I think that he may go deeper into this tournament than a lot of us think he will, and we'll just have to see how he's playing. I think if not in Indian Wells, we could see a very good showing by Djokovic in Miami, where he, along with his coach Andre Agassi, are pretty much the kings of Miami. So that's the draw. Serena Williams is also coming back on the women's side, and that will be interesting as well, and we'll be kind of watching some of those women's matches as well. So comment below with respect to the draw and with respect to the comments I just made. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this draw. Again, it's looking pretty clean into the semifinal and to the retention of the world #1 for Federer. Beyond that, it gets a little complicated, but certainly he's the favorite to take this crown once again for the second consecutive time. So the issue of court speed is an important one. By all appearances, all the courts on the professional tour have been slowing down. Of course, clay was always kind of slow, but in the other surfaces, they've been kind of converging around a slower norm. And this occurred largely in response to the predominance of the serve and volleyers in the early part of the 2000s. And it got to be a little tedious, a little boring for people, and so the idea is that the tournament started slowing down the courts to encourage longer rallies, longer matches. Federer has sort of confirmed that this is happening, so there's not really much dispute about that, but there may be a little bit of a reversal coming in the last couple of years. It looks as if the Paris Masters and the London, the finals, both of those courts, it seems to be, are speeding up in recent years. So there might be a bit of a turnaround. You might see a correlative kind of reemergence of serve and volleying if that happens. But in terms of Indian Wells, it's known as a slow court. It's been consistent throughout the years. In fact, it's sort of always been a slower hard court. They integrate some sand into the acrylic paint, basically, and the ball kind of trips up on the surface a little bit and slows down quite a bit post-bounce. On the other hand, it's really dry air out there. They're basically in the desert, and Federer noted just last year that the balls fly through the air a lot quicker in Indian Wells than they do, for example, in Miami, where it's really humid. The balls fluff up and the air is a lot thicker. So it's fast through the air, but a slowing surface insofar as post-bounce the ball gets a little slower. But on the other hand, there's a kick that the kind of sandy surface gives the ball that can benefit, for example, Federer's very impressive kick serve that he uses a lot, so that can have benefits. And I guess my question for you guys is, who is this going to benefit? Obviously, Federer is known to be a person that likes the faster surfaces, but on the other hand, he won at Indian Wells last year. He's won at Indian Wells a couple of times. It's been pretty slow at Indian Wells for a few decades, basically, or for as long as they've been playing there. So the question is, will this present a problem for Federer vis-a-vis some of the other players? Who are the other players in the draw that you think this could benefit, the slower surface that is at Indian Wells? It would seem that if the balls are flying faster through the air, then that might discourage volley play, net play, because you're going to have faster response time, right, to get balls that are pre-bounce, essentially. They're going to be moving very quickly through the air again, and if you're trying to catch them before they bounce, you're going to need quicker response times. But let me know what you think. First of all, about this process of homogenization. Do you think homogenization is happening on the one hand, but on the other hand, do you think that we should have more variety in the courts? And that is a claim that some people make. There should be more variety. But I've looked at what's called the Court Pace Index for the last few years, and it does seem like there certainly is variety. It's not totally homogenized, for sure, but it does seem like there's been some movement toward speeding up the courts. After an era of sort of slowing them down, there's been some movement towards speeding them up. Again, in Paris and London at those Masters events. Shanghai is by far the fastest court on the circuit in that regard. The other question, of course, is with the Grand Slams, but the Grand Slams, there's been some variation as well, and in 2017, the players were saying that the Australian Open courts were just playing like lightning speed. Jack Sock, I saw a quote from him, he was overwhelmed in a way by how fast the surfaces were. Federer would seem to prefer the faster surfaces, but he's performed well at Indian Wells before, and it may be that the balls are moving faster through the air. Again, post bounce they slow down. Post bounce they get a kick. That helps Federer's kick serve. But the fact that they're moving quicker through the air, do you think that benefits some players versus others? Do you think it benefits Federer more than others? Drop a comment. Let's get a discussion going about this, because I want to put a finer point on this question of court speed. I think it's going to be a big issue in the coming years, because I think the tournaments are actually going to change some things. So that's going to change the game once again, just as the slowing of the courts and the relative homogenization of the courts were factors in this emergence of what's essentially a baseline kind of game that we have now. We do have some all-court players, but there again, we have a few all-court players, and the ones that are really doing a true all-court game are doing very well. Roger Federer, of course, is Exhibit A. Let me know what you think about those questions. It's a fascinating issue, and it's kind of technical, but it really is relevant. Subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up if you like it, and I'll talk to you soon. Be well. Bye.